The TOK course now has 16 possible units, okay? And there's no way we can teach 16 units in the lessons we have. We just don't see you often enough to do that. So we've elected to choose some of those units and decide that those are the core. Every single student at RCHK has to cover these units, and that'll be the same. The others we've divided up into what we're calling pathways. It's basically the same as your DP courses where you have options. Okay? Unlike your DP courses where your teacher will probably choose the option for you, we want to give you some chance to choose a pathway that's going to match your interests. Presentation day, I just want to give you an overview of the whole course. You need to have a good look at what we're going to study, when we're going to study it, how it's going to work, and then we're going to ask you to spend some time thinking about how that affects the choice you make for the pathway you're going to select. All right? I'm going to take you guys through this. It shouldn't take too long, but let's have a look at it. TOK is not a philosophy course. All right? A lot of kids and parents get into thinking, oh, we're going to talk about Plato and Kant and Hume and Aristotle. That's not what we do. All right? TOK is an epistemology course. Now, epistemology is the study of knowledge. We ask the question, what does it mean to say, I know? Anytime you start a sentence with I know, whether it's I know that, I know how, I know when, there's a series of justifications that go along with that. There's evidence for that claim. Okay? TOK is about taking a look at that evidence and asking, how much can we really trust this? How reliable is this evidence? Is the thing we would consider evidence in math the same that we would consider evidence in art? Or are they different? And if they are, what does that mean for us? Okay? Ultimately, you are a human being, you have a mind, and you know things. All right? TOK is going to challenge that knowledge. We're going to ask you to critically examine whether you can really say you know, or if you have to admit, I believe. And what we have to ask ourselves is, when are we okay? When are we allowed to say, I know? And when should we really be saying, I believe? Okay? So we're going to look at that distinction. And that's the crux of TOK. So, assessment. This is probably the most important part for you guys right now. In year 13, you're going to do one presentation and one essay. Okay? Now, some of you will have to do the presentation twice. I'll explain that in a minute. Year 12, most of your evaluations will be very formative. You're going to have conversations in class. People who participate are going to make an impression. Your thinking is going to be evident. We're going to be able to evaluate that. In year 12, we're going to make you write 2 essays and do some mini presentations, little 5-minute things, stand up in class, tell me about what did you have for breakfast. And then you'll say, I had eggs and orange juice. And I'll say, how did you know? And you'll freak out. It'll be sad. I'm going to make you cry because in the end you won't believe that it was really eggs, right? So we're going to evaluate on 2 ways. The course is broken down into 3 main sections. The first one is knowledge and the knower. How do you, as an individual thinking creature, know stuff or not know it? Okay? Then we get into the ways of knowing. Now, the ways of knowing, there are 8. You will do at least 4. Okay? Everyone here is going to study language and reason. Every single one of you. It's very, very hard to reach the top band on any of the TOK assessments if you're not talking meaningfully about these 2 things. So all of you will start with this. You'll come in September next year, knowledge and the knower. What does it mean to say, I know that I'm in this room and that this room is in RCHK and that RCHK is in Hong Kong? What do I mean when I say that? Okay? Then we'll move on to language and reason. From the remaining 6, whatever pathway you select, you'll do 2 more. Okay? Ways of knowing are not the only ones, but roughly speaking, this is how you produce knowledge or gain knowledge. Now, sometimes you make knowledge, like you might in science. Sometimes you gain knowledge, like you get from reading a book or talking to an expert. From the ways of knowing, get into areas of knowledge. Now, if you look at this list, this should look like your diploma curriculum, right? Right away, you can see in here the 6 subject areas. Okay, and it's on purpose, right? TOK is at the core of the curriculum. It's meant to help you make meaningful comparisons between what you learn in history and what you learn in math. When you look at math, understanding the history of mathematics is an important part of understanding math as a subject area. Understanding the history of science is an important part of understanding physics, right? Understanding the history of religion across the world is important. These things have not existed for all time, and what we mean today when we say chemistry is different from what alchemists meant when they said chemistry. And understanding that history is important. So we put history on here as necessary. Ethics is on there because it's the most accessible, interesting, engaging way for you to talk about thinking skills. All of you are comfortable with ethical dilemmas, moral dilemmas, right? You're totally okay with that. I want to get into med school so I can help people and save lives. I won't get there with the grades I have, so I'm going to cheat. I know cheating's wrong, but saving lives is good. From the remaining 6, your pathway will have 2. Okay? So within this, we got math, natural science, human science, the arts. These 2 are the ones that were added for your curriculum. Okay? Religious knowledge systems and indigenous knowledge systems. Okay? We still do a pretty linear approach. We start with knowledge in the knower, then we do the ways of knowing, and then we move into the areas of knowledge. The pathways are not currently linked to a specific teacher. Okay? So you're choosing the topics, and then based on what the whole year group chooses, we'll decide how many teachers we need for each pathway to keep the class size normal. So we might have nobody choose Chinese, and then we'll just cancel Chinese TOK. Right? We might have everybody choose pathway 4, and then every single teacher will do that. All right? It's not linked up right now. We're just trying to give you the options. The choice you have before you is right here. Okay, now I know I've sent this to you. You've all had a chance to look at it. All right? Ultimately, what you're going to have to choose is, from the purple and the blue, the stuff you find the most interesting. Okay? Now, to be fair, this order is not necessarily indicative. We put it up this way. Teachers will jump around more or less. Okay? So try not to think about the sequence, but overall, holistically, what are you going to do? If you're not really passionate about TOK yet, and I totally get that, right? You're best trying to match up your HL subjects with the AOKs. Okay? The reason I say that is that when it gets time to write your essay, if you've had 250 hours in a subject, right? You're likely to have rich examples. Okay? Now, for example, one of the examples I did this morning is your presentation and your essay are much, much stronger when you really understand the examples. Okay? When you can say, look, the Big Bang Theory falls under physics technically and most often, but we can't repeat it. It's not experimental, and therefore it's not scientific. Right? But you need to know what you're talking about to do that. Okay? So try and get a pathway that touches on as many of your HL subjects as you can. Okay? That's my #1 advice here. Now here's how this is going to work. On Friday at 8:30, which is when you're all on advisory, don't be late Friday because it's first come, first serve. Right? I'm going to send you a Google form. You're going to log on. And it should be click, click, click. You give me 3 choices, first, second, and third. You should know those when you show up. Okay? If you're opening this up and then you're trying to find the TOK guide, last year it only took about 7 minutes for everything to be full. Okay? It's literally going to be click, click, click. So know what you want to do when you show up. At exactly 8:30, I'm going to hit send, the Google form goes live, and then I start sorting you into classes. Now for this year's group, I think I only had 10 kids who didn't get their first choice. Right? And 5 of those were trying to get into the Chinese section. Okay? Everyone else is probably going to get their first choice. And the reason is, if everyone picks pathway 4, I'll make all the teachers do this. We try and keep the class size between 15 to 18. All right? So if I had 12 for pathway 1, I might go ahead and run it anyways. Right? But generally 15 to 18. It's the best mix for having good discussions, making groups, working in partners, all that kind of stuff. For Chinese, if it's oversubscribed, if there are more than 18, it'll be first, gender balance. Second, which Chinese and English courses you took for group 1 and group 2. Okay? I won't exclude anyone who really, really needs the advantage of being in Chinese. Okay? And we'll try and accommodate as best we can. But like I said, if you're in English, Language and Lit HL, you don't need Chinese TOK. All right? So that'll be the first part. For the rest of them, I will divide you up as evenly as I can based on gender and the HL subjects you chose. You might be in a class where you're studying art and you don't take HL art. It'd be good to have someone in there who does. Right? It's someone who contributes to the conversation and share examples and walk through things. Okay? The other thing to remember is in the course of a lesson, if we're talking about Charlie Hebdo, right, and we're not in the art unit, but it comes up under ethics, we're probably going to talk about art anyways. There's a ton of overlap. Okay? This is very much a framework, but you'll be touching on the whole thing. There's no reason to think that you're only going to cover 4 ways of knowing. You'll talk about all 8 at some point, but there'll be a distinct focus on 4.